pen and the paradox. I fell for the ghost in the journal. My life was a ledger, precise, organized, utterly devoid of accident. My name is Elias Thorne, 32 years old, an auditor for historical assets, which is just a polished way of saying I was paid to place sterile numbers beside dead people's belongings. My apartment in the financial district was a study in minimalism. The stainless steel and pervasive, low hum of the city's electric heart were my only companions. Logic was my absolute sovereign. I was tasked with liquidating the estate of Mrs. Alara Vance, an eccentric artist who had passed away in her Brooklyn brownstone. The house itself was an artifact, stubbornly resisting modernity. It smelled of dust so deep it was structural, turpentine, and a heavy, sweet decay of old paper. Every intake of breath felt like swallowing history. In the back parlor, which Alara had used as a study, the late afternoon sun slanted through grimy window blinds, cutting the air into golden, vibrating ribbons that illuminated dancing motes of dust. The only rhythmic sound was a soft, professional click-click-click on my inventory keyboard, a foreign mechanical intrusion. It was in a hidden compartment of an ornate mahogany desk, a panel that yielded to a specific pressure I instinctively found, that I discovered the anomaly, the journal. It was thick, heavy, and bound in soft, cracked leather that felt warm against my fingertips, like old skin. I lifted it out. The scent that rushed up from the pages was intoxicatingly out of place. Violet ink, dried sea salt, and a sharp undercurrent of ozone, a thrill, cold and illicit, shot down my spine. This was no antique to be inventoried. This was a secret meant to be destroyed. I opened the book, and the auditor in me instantly dissolved. The journal belonged to Lila. Her handwriting was an immediate, visceral portrait, swift, passionate, and beautifully uncontrolled, leaning forward as if desperate to confess a secret before time ran out. Lila didn't just write. She lived onto the page. She meticulously captured the sound of the floorboards groaning under her slippers, a specific, low-pitched chord that I recognized from traversing the same hallway minutes before. She detailed the exact shade of emerald of the moss on the exterior wall. But it was her core philosophy that seized me, her belief that her soulmate existed, not spatially distant, but chronologically displaced. August 12, 1996. I saw him today, standing outside the gallery. He was checking his watch, that brief, impatient, almost electrically frustrated gesture that is so perfectly him. His energy vibrates at a future frequency. He looked at me, Elias, but his eyes were unfocused. He looked straight through me. He belongs to the city of glass and fiber optics, and I am merely dried ink on a page from a lifetime he hasn't reached yet. I write these words for him, breathing deep the scent of my ancient past, hoping the universe preserves a message. My respiration hitched, a sharp, ragged intake of air. Elias. She used my name. I leaned back, the rough chair back digging into my shoulders. My logical mind, honed over a decade of sterile quantification, was screaming coincidence, probability, hallucination. Yet my hands, usually so steady, trembled as they held the leather. I logged a porcelain vase, then closed a journal, ignoring the cardinal rules of my profession. I slipped it into my slim briefcase. Elias Thorne, auditor of facts, was now a thief of history. At home, under the clinical glow of my task lamp, the obsession became a fever. I devoured her words. Her descriptions of him were meticulous, forensic. She described a small, crescent-shaped scar exactly 1 inch above his left wrist, earned from a fall at age 7. She noted the rare book he carried on Tuesdays, Calvino's Invisible Cities. She captured the subtle, rapid micro-tremor in his right index finger when he was deeply focused, a detail so private, so minute, I had only noticed it in my reflection once, under severe stress. I didn't just read about a soulmate. I read a biometric profile of my own existence, written 2 decades before I bought my first suit. I was in love with a woman who had spent her life as a prophet of my mundane reality. The ledgers became blurred noise. I existed only for the journal. The scent of violet ink was now a permanent atmospheric condition in my apartment. I held the book to my chest sometimes, convinced I could feel a faint, residual heartbeat under the leather. I ran discreet searches. The results were painful, half-told truth. Lila was a niece who disappeared in 2002 at 26. Alara Vance was the artist, the elderly aunt who died recently. The obituary for Lila was yellowed, simple and cold. Yet, Lila's entries continued until March 3rd, 2004. The discrepancy was devastating. I found the crucial entry on that late date. The script was calmer, more deliberate, almost meditative. The final paradox is achieved. The equation balances itself. My physical time is ending, but I finally understand the necessary mechanics of the message. I must change the variable. I will shed the name, shed the old life, and become the keeper of the silence. Elias must find the pages, but he must never find the messenger alive. I have to become the vessel that carries the ink into his time, even if it means 40 years of watching the shadows where his future should be. My vision swam. My hands clamped onto the pages, crushing the brittle paper. Lila had not vanished. She had spent her final decades as Alara Vance, living a solitary life of sacrifice, painting and waiting for the right time to die, solely to ensure I would be the one to find the journal. Her entire isolated existence was a single, beautiful, and devastating act of authorship, a package delivery system designed to connect with one specific recipient. Tears sharp and hot, burned trails down my cheeks, the first I'd shed since childhood. I felt the profound, chilling weight of her intentional life and death. The very last page contained no more words, only a meticulously drawn, crude map of the brownstone's basement. The X marked a specific floorboard. The note, "Go now. The synchronization is complete. The silver remains." I didn't pause to rationalize. The scent of violet ink was pulling me, an undeniable current. I grabbed my keys, the leather journal tucked securely under my arm like a vital organ. It was 3 a.m. when I returned to Brownstone. The fog was heavy, clinging to the streetlights and muffling the sound of my own footsteps on the wet cobblestones. The house stood like a dark monolith, reeking of damp stone and dormant secrets. My heart hammered, a brutal metronome in the silence. The basement air was thick with the smell of mildew and cold, stagnant water. I found the floorboard, the wood yielding with a loud, drawn-out groan that made me freeze for a full minute, listening for movement that wouldn't come. Beneath the board, wrapped in aged linen that disintegrated at my touch, were two things: a small, tarnished silver locket, cold and rough against my palm, and a folded slip of paper. I unfolded the paper. It was written by Lila, but signed Alara. It was the coda. It confirmed my darkest, grandest hypothesis. You are reading this now. The paradox holds. But the key to the final synchronization is not the journal itself. It is the memory of the locket. It describes the park bench where I waited for him in my 2001. Find the locket's twin. Find the bench. Our past is now your present. Do not fail the delivery. I gasped. The sudden, dizzying shift in perspective from protagonist to mere postman was almost physically sickening. Him. She didn't sacrifice her life for me. She sacrificed it to deliver me to the true object of her longing. The locket felt like a burden, a symbol of love I had wrongfully claimed. I pulled the journal to the last page. May 14th, 2001. I am sitting on the bench by the weeping willow, reading the same worn copy of Invisible Cities that he will be carrying 2 decades from now. He is just passing now, head bowed, holding his sketchbook. I leave the other half of the locket here, tucked into the bark. It's a promise, written in silver, not ink, a bridge for him to cross. I recognize the willow in the sketch instantly. My hands stopped shaking. The grief for my lost love transformed into a sharp, decisive clarity for a true mission. I had a debt to pay. The morning sun had broken, its light struggling through a layer of urban smog as I drove to the park. The world felt thin, like a veil ready to be ripped away. I found the Prospero Park willow. It's heavy, cascading leaves creating a deep, private shadow. The air under its branches was cooler, thick with the scent of dew and decaying leaves. There was the bench, dark and worn smooth by decades of anonymous longing. I approached the massive, knotted trunk. I felt a desperate sense of reverence. I ran my fingers over the rough, damp bark, searching. The bark was like geological time made visible, and there, tucked into a deep, protected crevice, was the other half of the locket. It was dull and covered in a thin patina of green moss. I carefully cleaned the moss away. I took the half from the basement and fitted the two pieces together. They clicked with a soft, definitive sound. The sound of destiny locking into place. The combined locket felt instantly warmer in my hand. I sat on the bench, placed my worn copy of Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities, the one I carried every Tuesday, beside me and waited. My breath was deep and controlled. I had transcended the role of the auditor. I was now the executor of the paradox. After 10 minutes of profound, vibrating silence, a figure entered the willow's periphery. He was young, in his early 30s, dressed in an old faded denim jacket that looked loved, not stylish. He carried a heavy, scuffed leather sketchbook and looked slightly disoriented, as if searching for a forgotten memory. His steps were hesitant, his head tilted. He stopped, his blue eyes sweeping the area, lingering on the willow, then on the bench. He saw me, and a wave of pure, unadulterated shock washed over his features. The connection was instantaneous, but it was Lila's connection, not mine. I rose slightly, holding the combined locket in my left hand. I'm sorry, he stammered, his voice a low, slightly rough baritone. I know this sounds insane, but I've been coming here for years, and I always feel like I'm supposed to see someone. Did you just arrive? I gave him a gentle, quiet smile, a smile of profound, secondhand joy. My name is Elias, I said, my voice perfectly clear, and I have a delivery for you. His eyes dropped to the locket, then to the book on the bench, and finally back to me. He recognized the pieces of the puzzle Lila had left. Who are you delivering for? He whispered, his eyes wide, full of questions that transcended logic. I closed a copy of Invisible Cities. I'm delivering for a woman named Lila, I said. She was an artist, and she wrote you a letter that took her an entire lifetime to send. He took an instinctive step toward the bench. I'm Finn, he said, his name sounding both ancient and new. I'm an artist. I always feel something here. I was an auditor, I replied, sitting back down, allowing a small, weary chuckle to escape. But I think I've just been promoted to courier, and my mission is complete. Finn slowly sat beside me, his shoulder barely an inch from mine. He looked at the locket, then at the deep groove in the bark where Lila had hidden the twin. He hadn't been searching for me. He had been searching for the feeling of the love that had sustained him across decades, a feeling only I could make real. I handed him the journal. Start from the beginning. I instructed gently. She was waiting for you. I stood up, leaving Finn with the journal, the locket, and the massive, protective shadow of the willow. My purpose was fulfilled. I walked away from the bench, feeling lighter than I had in years, unburdened by the misplaced love, yet eternally grateful for the love that had fueled my journey. Elias Thorne, the auditor of rigid facts, had finally embraced the truth. The most beautiful stories are those that defy logic, and the greatest love is the one brave enough to design its own meaning. My life wasn't a spreadsheet anymore. It was an open-ended dedication. Finn felt the weight of the leather-bound journal, the very one Elias had placed in his hands, as if it contained actual decades. The cold, smooth silver of the combined locket, now resting against the sternum beneath his denim jacket, felt like a new, heavy heart. Elias had departed with only a nod and the quiet rumble of his vintage motorcycle fading into the morning traffic. Finn was left alone on the park bench, under the immense, weeping canopy of the willow. The scent of violet ink and dried sea salt clung to the pages, an impossible, intoxicating fragrance that was now the defining characteristic of his air. His artist's eye, trained to capture fleeting beauty, was confronted with a devastating, profound truth. He was in love with a ghost, a woman named Lila who had loved him enough to orchestrate a 24-year-long masterpiece of living sacrifice, just to give him a message. He returned to the journal, skipping the frantic, passionate early entries to find the crucial, lonely observations of Alara Vance. He needed to understand the scope of the sacrifice, the texture of her patience. The entries in the Alara Vance period were heartbreakingly sparse. The elegant script now disciplined and controlled. They were not about passionate love. They were about vigilance. August 2008. He was near the old bookshop today. I saw his shadow cast long and thin on the cracked sidewalk. He held his sketchbook tight to his side, carrying the burden of the unseen, the unsaid. He looked weary, strained, like a beautiful line drawn that had yet to be inked. I wanted to touch his shoulder, whisper the truth, tell him he was worthy of the life he painted. But the ink is not dry yet. I must remain the frame, not the picture. He must meet his Elias without my interference. My heart aches, a physical, dull throb behind my ribs, for the tangible things I cannot give him directly. A cup of hot tea, a shared laugh, a simple touch. Finn closed the journal, the leather pressing against his trembling jaw. The knowledge that she had been watching over him as a solitary, artistic guardian angel for his entire adult life was overwhelming. Every quiet moment he had experienced, every sense of being almost seen, was her actual patient, living presence from a different time. He returned to his small, cluttered studio apartment in the village. The smell of turpentine and burnt coffee usually dominated his workspace, but now the violet ink was the strongest note, a persistent, beautiful intruder. He spread out his own sketchbooks, the very ones Lila had referenced, his early drawings, full of raw talent and profound, undefinable melancholy, suddenly felt like cryptic pleas he didn't even know he was writing. His first act was to draw. He drew the face of the old artist, Elara Vance, meticulously recreating the weathered lines around her mouth, the resigned slump of her shoulders, trying to excavate the younger, fiercer Lila hidden beneath the years of deliberate concealment. He was searching for a way to reverse the damage, to apologize for the years she lost. 3 weeks passed in the days of creative obsession and grief. Finn had barely slept, subsisting on cold noodles and the fierce energy of Lila's words. His only tether to the present was the occasional, minimalist text message exchange with Elias. The sound of the buzzer ripped him from a drawing frenzy. It was Elias. Finn opened the door to find Elias standing there, less like an auditor and more like a mythic courier. He wore a soft, dark brown leather jacket over a simple gray shirt, and the strap of a vintage messenger bag cut across his chest. He looked different. His movements were less sharp, more fluid, and his eyes, though still clinically observant, held a calm certainty Finn hadn't seen at the park. He no longer seemed to be battling his own internal ledger. Delivery, Elias stated, his voice low. He held out a plain, thick manila envelope, sealed with a deep, reddish-brown wax impression, a small crescent moon, the very symbol on the locket, from the contents of Elara Vance's safety deposit box. My fee has been covered, posthumously. Finn's hands, stained with graphite and charcoal dust, trembled as he took the package. Inside he found 2 items. A single yellowed photograph, slightly cracked along the edges, of Lila circa 1998. She was sitting in the brownstone's kitchen, sunlight cutting across the table, her eyes bright and defiant. On the back, written in her rushed, passionate script, were 2 simple, powerful words: be bold. An old-fashioned, heavy brass key, cold against his palm, with an intricate, almost floral design on the head, smelling faintly of ancient, dry metal. What is this key? Finn asked, his voice catching. Elias leaned against the studio doorframe, the creak of the old wood underlining his words. It's the key to the attic of the brownstone. I retrieved it from a bank vault. Lila left a single, typed instruction, delivered to the boy who receives a journal. Tell him the true paradox lies in the unwritten chapters. Elias paused, his gaze fixing Finn with an unwavering intensity. The moment was not about him, but about the mission. Lila gave you the star of your life, the emotional truth, but she left her heart, her ultimate artistic statement, in the attic. She needs a new artist to finish the story, Finn, not just to read it. Go, and do not catalog what you find. Finn drove to the brownstone, the brass key digging into his palm. The sheer audacity of Lila's artistic plan was a terrifying motivator. He felt like an actor being called onto a stage that had been set 20 years prior. He climbed the narrow, twisting, oppressive staircase, the old wood groaning and complaining under his weight, until he reached the final landing. The air in the stairwell was thin, and the attic lock was high above his head. The key fit the lock with a heavy, gratifying metallic thud. The smell that rushed out was unique. pure hot dust, seal wood, and a faint residual sweetness of oil paint. Inside, the attic was vast and completely empty, save for a single colossal item standing in precise center, illuminated by a dusty skylight. A massive unfinished canvas, nearly 10 feet tall, draped in a pristine white linen sheet. Finn's heart hammered against the locket. He walked toward it, his own footsteps echoing strangely on the bare floorboards. He took a deep, nervous breath, smelling the dust that felt centuries old. He grabbed the sheet and pulled it away. The linen fell to the floor in a soft, white pool. It was a painting of breathtaking, mournful ambition. It was a city half-finished and bursting with color, yet profoundly unstable. Half the city was rendered in the warm, impressionistic, lush tones of the late 1990s. Thick sunlight, rich, deep shadows, and vibrant human movement. It was the world Lila knew. The other half was a terrifyingly blank white void, a colossal, stark space reserved for a modern, digital city that she never painted. But the focal point was the most devastating artistic confession. At the very center, standing on an old, iron-wrought bridge connecting the old, real city to the terrifying white void, were two figures. One was the fierce young woman, Lila. The other was a young man with a messenger's satchel across his chest, sharply checking his wrist, Elias. Lila hadn't just used Elias as a courier. She had immortalized their non-meeting, their tragic, beautiful misconnection, in her final, massive work. It was her painful, final recognition that they were forever two ships passing in the night. Finn, the actual intended soulmate, was nowhere in the painting. He was a terrifying white space. He realized a true paradox. Lila had succeeded in ensuring Finn would find her love, but her final artistic vision was one where no one escaped the fate of separation. She gave up on finding him in her art, even as she succeeded in her life's mission. Finn looked down at his own scuffed sketchbook. The "be bold" command rang in his ears. His purpose wasn't to mourn Lila, or even to love her ghost. His purpose was to prove her final, desperate masterpiece wrong. Finn brought the canvas down, the sheer effort of moving it a painful, physical exertion that grounded him in the present. He placed on a massive easel in his studio, dwarfing his other works. He began his response. He didn't try to match her oil paint. He used his own medium, a complex blend of digital projection for structure and vibrant, expressive modern acrylics, merging her analog world with his digital one. He kept the beautiful, mournful image of Lila and Elias on the bridge. He kept the deep, warm colors of the past. But in the blank, stark, modern half of the canvas, he began to paint a new city, a city of color, connection, and hope. He painted the park bench, the weeping willow, and the image of two figures sitting close together, reading the same book. He painted the silver locket, glowing with a soft, internal warmth. The two have finally joined. He painted Finn and Elias, together, connected by the very love that separated them from Lila. He painted the unwritten chapter. A week later, Elias arrived with another delivery, a message from a gallery owner curious about an ensign piece found in Alara Vance's estate. Elias pushed open the studio door, the smell of turpentine and new oil paint hitting him. He stopped dead in the doorway. Elias gasped, dropping his satchel with a muffled thud. The sheer scale and emotional weight of Finn's finished work, the bridge between Lila's sacrifice and their realized future, was overwhelmingly beautiful. The canvas, now complete, no longer felt mournful, but victorious. Finn turned to Elias, his eyes clear and resolute, no longer haunted by the ink. "She was an artist, Elias," Finn said, his voice ringing with conviction, gesturing to the canvas. "She captured the painful truth of her past, but she couldn't imagine our future. She gave me the tools to paint it, to fix the paradox of her despair." He pointed to the figure on the bench next to the figure of himself. "And this is you, Elias, not just a courier. You are the architect of the first meeting of the new city. You didn't just deliver a message, you connected two lost realities." Elias looked at the painting, then at the locket Finn wore, and then at his own rough, working hands. He saw his own figure in the painting, not an impatient auditor, but a vital link, a man finally given meaning. He felt a profound, illogical piece of purpose. He was no longer Perdita's delivery man or Lila's failed love object. He was a connector. Thank you, Finn, Elias said softly, his voice thick with unspent emotion. I think I finally understand the true balance of the ledger. It's not about what you lose. It's about what you gain through connection. Finn smiled, a bright, genuine smile that Lila had spent a lifetime trying to draw. The balance, Elias, is that she gave us both a story worth living. Finn had finished the canvas, but his true life's work, the love story that began with a dead woman's ink, was just beginning. The paradox was solved, and the unwritten chapter was finally being lived together.